What do you think the worst cities in the eastern United States are? Baltimore, Camden, New Jersey, Washington, D.C.? Those are the obvious picks. If you look at the stats and listen to the rumors, you'll probably find that those three are the absolute worst cities in the eastern United States. Places you don't want to be a homeowner, and in some neighborhoods, if you did want to be a homeowner, you'd probably have to bribe a real estate agent to take you on a walkthrough. Today, we're following up the West Coast version of this series with the other side of the United States. Like the Western United States video, we are skipping past the obvious three: Baltimore, Washington, D.C., and Camden, New Jersey. The other one, we passed up San Francisco, Oakland, and Portland, Oregon. We all know those are bad, no reason to go over them again. In this video, we will look at a bunch of stats: poverty rate, crime rate, traffic, weather, employment numbers, and a few other things, and pick our top 10. These are not in any special order. If we were going by, let's say, one or even two stats, we'd do it in top 10. This is just the 10 that we think are the absolute worst. We'll also include home prices and the worst neighborhood or suburb statistically in each. Got it? Get it? Good. Let's take a look. Number 10, Homestead, Florida. Way down at the southern tip of the United States in Florida, you find Homestead. Homestead is where civilization meets the Everglades. It's like the very end, other than like the Keys, but that's off the coast. Homestead is home to the Homestead Speedway. They have NASCAR races there. I think they stopped for a while and they're bringing it back, something like that. I don't feel like getting into it, but this is a big racing town. They also have an Air Force base right there and a lot of dudes in mullets. You know those Florida man stories? A lot of them come from Homestead. I've always wanted to go kayaking down there. To the west of Homestead, they got really good kayaking in the Everglades. Homestead is a city that is growing, and you know what they say, more people means more problems. One of their biggest problems there is violent crime. Their overall crime isn't terrible. It's only 38% above the national average, but their violent crime rate is 153% above the national average. Obviously, if you had to pick between the two, you'd rather it be property crime versus violent crime. You can replace your stuff. It's hard to replace Jerry, who works the drill press. Let's say you went insane and you decided you wanted to move to this wonderful part of Florida. The average home value in Homestead is $432,000. That's up 7.2% over the last year. The worst place to live near Homestead is either Gold's, which the stats aren't that bad. Miami Heights is a little bit worse. Number 9, Huntington, West Virginia. Yep, that's right, West Virginia makes it on the list. And it's not just for poverty either. Huntington is in a tri-state area, sharing a border and a river with Kentucky and Ohio. Although technically it doesn't share the same river, it kind of shares the Big Sandy River with Kentucky and the Ohio River with Ohio. Like everywhere in West Virginia, the surrounding area around Huntington is beautiful. Beautiful land in West Virginia. If you like to be outdoors, this ranks right up there, maybe even better than Colorado. The downside is, like we've talked about with Charleston and all of West Virginia, is they've been hit hard with the coal mining industry kind of winding down, and of course the opioid epidemic. Huntington is also home to Marshall University. Great school with a sad legacy. On November 14th, 1970, a DC-9 carrying Marshall University football players, coaches, and fans crashed into a hillside in West Virginia, killing 75 people. They made a movie about it with Matthew McConaughey. It was really good. Such a tragically sad story, though. This state needs some good luck. If you're ever driving through Huntington or any part of West Virginia and you see a local, hand them a rabbit's foot or a horseshoe or something. Myself, I wouldn't move to Huntington. I mean, I like the outdoors and all that. It just has too many problems to get past to enjoy the outdoors. There's one good thing. If you want to buy a home in Huntington, the average home value is $113,000. That's up 1% from last year. I was checking it out. You can get decent homes like ready to go for $150,000 that are nice. And here's a couple of their problems. Their total crime rate is 48% above the national average. Their violent crime rate is 71% above the national average. The worst place to live in the Huntington metro area is actually in Kentucky. It's called Ashland, Kentucky. This place has a lot of problems. One of them is all the young people are leaving. The typical city in the United States, the age averages range between 32 years old and 37 years old. And when you start getting into the high 30s, you're considered to have a very old population. Ashland is 43.2. Number 8, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Philadelphia has the potential to be a really, really bad place, like let's say Baltimore or Washington, D.C. They're not. They have some straight up scary places like Kensington, but overall, most of the city's just kind of medium bad. I still wouldn't want to live there. Philadelphia faces challenges with crime, poverty, and economic disparity. The residents of Philadelphia are known for being perpetually grumpy. I don't know why. I mean, they got the best cheesesteaks. That always puts me in a good mood. Maybe it's the parking ticket thing. Living in Philadelphia can be challenging, especially when you realize your entire life savings could easily be spent on parking tickets alone, given the city's mysterious ability to spawn parking meters overnight. The parking meter situation and the parking in Philadelphia is so bad, they actually made a reality show about it. They called it Parking Wars. But if you want to buy a home in Philadelphia, it's reasonable. The average home value in Philadelphia is $212,000, which is not bad. And that's down 1.5% over the last year. Now here's where it gets ugly. It's their crime rate. Now they got Kensington, which I don't even think they could track crime there. That place is like a Mad Max movie. But throughout the city, the total crime rate is 131% above the national average, and their violent crime rate is 182% above the national average. Ridiculous. And like I said earlier, the worst part and the worst place you don't want to live in Philadelphia is Kensington. Number 7, Rochester, New York. Rochester is known for a high crime rate, poverty, and horrible weather. In Rochester, the local weather forecast is the city's longest running comedy show. Rochester is one of the snowiest cities. Actually, the snowiest city in the United States is also on this list. And that plays a part in this whole thing. What makes a city bad? It's not just crime and poverty, the weather, the traffic, all that stuff. Rochester, I have a bunch of relatives there, and I get grief every time I bring them up. But I gotta be fair, Rochester sucks, and most of it's because of the weather. But if you want to buy a home in Rochester, that's not terrible. $196,000 is the average home value. Now, there was no change over last year. It stayed even. Their crime rate, it's not great, but it's not horrible. 86% above the national average. Their violent crime rate is 98% above the national average. And if you want to find the worst part in Rochester, it's going to be Central Business District. Now, that's broken down by the city and where the crime is reported. They might have a different name for it. We've discussed this before. Sometimes with the city and how they track the crime, they have names for the neighborhoods, which are the official neighborhoods. But a lot of times the officials, they don't call it that. I used to live in a place called South Redondo Beach, or just South Redondo. Years later, I found out the official name for my neighborhood was Clifton. I lived in that area my whole life. Never even knew that. Number 6, Trenton, New Jersey. Yep, Trenton. This isn't New Jersey's only appearance on this list. Trenton is one of those places you move to when you've given up on your dreams. And the only reason you move there is because your grandmother lives there and she promised you could stay in the basement for free. Trenton suffers from high crime rates, economic issues, and urban decay. Living in Trenton is like playing a never-ending game of spot the pothole, except everyone's losing and the grand prize is a trip to the mechanic. Years ago, I saw a meme with a car that was halfway in like a sinkhole in a street. And I guess it was Trenton because it said, my grandfather always said, Trenton has potholes that'll swallow a car. And at the bottom of it said, I guess Grandpa wasn't crazy. If you want to move to Trenton and talk to a realtor or a real estate agent, you want to get a home, the average home value here is $305,000. That's up 12.7% over the last year. That's crazy. It's like, we know the place sucks, but we're going to charge you like it doesn't. Their total crime rate is 26% above the national average. Buckle up for this one. Their violent crime rate is 187% above the national average. You know why that is? Because nobody has anything to steal. So their property crime is really low. The worst part to live in Trenton, the worst place, is Trenton Central West, they say. It's a neighborhood. Number 5, Syracuse, New York. Again with the weather. Syracuse's biggest problem, well, no, I shouldn't say its biggest problem. One of its biggest is the winters. Winters in this part of New York can be brutal. Now, there is a trade-off. Summers in New York are absolutely perfect most of the time. It gets a little hot. I've had some great summers in New York. The winters are so bad, residents in Syracuse often don't need a gym membership because their daily workout is shoveling snow 8 months a year, it seems like. It's not that bad, but if you've ever lived in a place that's very snowy, now I've only done it 3 different years, and I swear to you, each month seemed like it went on for 6 months. Funny thing is, you never hear much about Syracuse as far as, it's kind of a bad place to live, and it's got some problems. Not all over, but it's got some pretty scary neighborhoods. They do have a very high poverty rate and a lot of urban decay. Things a real estate agent won't volunteer willingly. If you want to buy a house in Syracuse, the average home value is about $171,000. That is up 10.6% over the last year. Now here's their crime stats. Their total crime rate is 70% above the national average. Their violent crime rate is 141% above the national average. And their worst place to live is called Southwest Syracuse. The violent crime rate in that area is 499% above the national average. That's like Southside Chicago numbers right there. Number 4, Newark, New Jersey. Living in Newark is like living in a real-life Monopoly game. The entire city is Baltic Avenue. If you ever decided you wanted to move to Newark and you wanted to buy a house, the average home value is about $428,000. That's up 6.6% over the last year. Now, they got some crime there. Not crazy crime, but it's not great. The way the city's laid out and their infrastructure really gets them on this list, in my opinion. They've got a lot of urban decay going on. But their total crime rate is 41% above the national average. Their violent crime rate is 67% above the national average. The worst place to live in Newark is Newark. Number 3, Buffalo, New York. Buffalo almost makes this list on snow alone. Buffalo is considered the snowiest city in the United States. It's pretty far north and it has the lake effect. It sits right on Lake Erie, so that snow gets pretty deep. Buffalo struggles with the typical problems: economic challenges, urban decay, and high poverty. But hey, if you still want to move there, you can buy a house pretty cheap. The average home value in Buffalo is $209,000. That's up 6.4% over the last year. Now, they do have some crime. Their total crime rate is 70% above the national average. Their violent crime rate is 99% above the national average. The worst place to live statistically in Buffalo is a neighborhood called Emerson. If you don't know where that is, it's on the west side of the rail yard. This neighborhood has a lot of empty lots, like they mowed down abandoned homes here. Number 2, Wilmington, Delaware. Wilmington has actually been worse. About 4 years ago, it was absolutely one of the worst places to live in the United States. It's gotten a little better. It is by no stretch of the imagination a great place to live, but they've gotten better since, I'd say, the beginning of the pandemic. Wilmington struggles with violent crime and socioeconomic issues. They also got some pretty bad infrastructure problems. If you don't know where Wilmington is, go to Philadelphia and head southwest. Like you're going to Baltimore, it's just outside of Philadelphia. Other than the violent crime, Wilmington is kind of boring. Living in Wilmington is like being in the witness protection program you never signed up for. It's quiet, nobody knows where it is, and you can't seem to get out. But if you want to buy a house in Wilmington, the average home value is $295,000. That's, for what you're getting, I don't think that's fair. I think it should be around $200,000. Anyway, it actually went up 7.1% last year. Their total crime rate is 97% above the national average, and here's where they really shine. Their violent crime rate is 225% above the national average. The worst place to live in Wilmington would be East Side or Midtown. Take your choice. All right, before we get to number 1, don't forget we have another channel called On This Day. There's a link for that down below. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, Atlantic City, New Jersey. Now, like I said, these aren't going in any particular order. They've all got their certain things that they suck at more than other places. Atlantic City's got a lot of problems. The casino industry's been declining there for some time now. This has left a lot of people out of work and a lot of people have left, things of that nature. So they just don't bring in the tourist dollars that they used to. And this, of course, has driven up their poverty and their crime rate and everything else. If you decided you wanted to move there, you completely lost your senses, and you're talking to a real estate agent, you're going to find out that the average home value in Atlantic City is $195,000, and it's gone up 14.8% over the last year. Who's buying homes here? They need their medication checked. Their total crime rate is 318% above the national average. Their violent crime rate is 357% above the national average. Now, where the worst place to live in Atlantic City is up for debate, but Sea Isle City, New Jersey, it's in the metro area, statistically, they're the worst. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Now go out, have a great day, be nice to each other.